those. All right, I got to get one of those come in and come out things. I got to get together with Zach. Anyway, welcome to the Curmudgeon in the Cellar, number 17, I believe it is, in the sequential number system. All right, got several oddball things I want to talk about tonight. Questions I'm going to answer. Also, I got to go. I'm going to give a little plug to a game that I've been enjoying lately, and I'm taken to all four of the cons that I'm going to, and that's called Dirt Track Saturday Night. Stock car racing in the mud. Actually, it's kind of late model in the mud. But anyway, I think it's more fun than chariots. And so if you're coming to Total Con, Gary Con, North Texas RPG Con, or Game Hole, look for it because I'll be there running it. Got this great big neato 3-foot by 4-foot map, and it's Matchbox cars for counters. And man, it's a good game. More fun than chariots. So anyway, that's a pimp for all four cons. Somebody asked me what kind of music we listened to back in the day at TSR. I was probably listening to Bo Hansen, Tangerine Dream. I was into, in the early 70s, right after I got out of the service, what was kind of a subgenre called space music, if you will. A lot of instrumental stuff. Later, some of it morphed into new age. Bo Hansen is still one that I recommend highly. Magician's Hats, Attic Thoughts. I think he's got a third one, perhaps. Hard to find, but well worth the look. A guy named Gil Luna has some soundtracks out specifically for gaming. You might Google him and look for it. I don't know him or anything. In fact, I think I once backed one of his Kickstarters for a few bucks to do the first one. The only song I really remember from that period of time, excuse me, is one that came out in like 77 or early 78, and it wasn't in the context of D&D, but this is back when we were playing a lot of Fight in the Skies at my car's apartment. We were playing like almost every week, and whenever Mike lined up a tail on somebody or whatever, he'd go to the next room and he'd kick on Foreigner, Cold as Ice. That is the song that I associate with the latter part of my tenure at TSR. No good reason. Just that's the one. And along those same lines, somebody asked about what kind of games did I play when I was in the service and downtime. Well, I may have spoken about this before. Before I was deployed to Nam, I had occasion to play a massive Avalon Hill game. It was one of the biggest behemoths ever produced, called 1914. And I actually played it to completion a number of times when I met the developer from Avalon Hill and congratulated him on what a fantastic, though cumbersome game it was. He thought I was pulling his leg. And no, I really did play it, though we had to start on Friday evening and sometimes didn't quite make it to the end of the game before we had to make Monday muster. We played through the entire weekend in the laundry room in the barracks. When I was deployed, we didn't play any board games as such, nothing that we would call a board game today. We played tons of cards. And there was one 3M bookshelf game that we played the hell out of. And I can attest to the fact that when my squadron deployed in 1969, there were 3 copies of this game at PXs in the Pacific, 1 in Subic Bay in the Philippines, and 2 in Sasebo, Japan. I know because I bought all 3 of them because we wore them out. The game was called, now I'm blanking. God, this is embarrassing. Boy, I wish I had a pause button here, but I don't know how to do that. Um, we invented a word for it. In fact, the shop chief, acquire. Yes, please. Oh God, chemo and old man brain, bad combo. It was called acquire, and we kept buying new copies because we literally wore the copies out. We're in the tropics. The deeds were sort of like, deed things like sort of in Monopoly. Well, in the humidity, after 3 weeks, 4 weeks, they were limp as rags. You couldn't hold them like cards; they fell over your hand. Um, so I bought the first one in Longappo, and we wore it out in a month. And we were also wearing the paint off the numbers on the tiles. It was a very simple abstract game. You put together strings of tiles that were essentially hotel chains, and then you maneuvered to take over smaller chains and absorb them. And our leading chief petty officer, who was from Alabama and Georgia and sounded like it, very, very smart individual, heavy accent, invented a word one day that became our secret word in the shop that only those of us who played the game knew what it meant. Anyway, he'd been maneuvering, and finally he got the tile he needed to absorb the smaller one with his larger one, which combined would give him the game. So he played down the tile and he went, kadunge. And from then on, whenever you took over another smaller chain, you kadunged it. Go figure. We wore that one out. Next port of call happened to be Sasebo, Japan. And we bought one of the two that they had on the shelf there. 2 or 3 months later, we were back in Sasebo and had to buy another one, the last one they had. And when it wore out, we didn't play anymore, but that was maybe 6 weeks or so from coming back to the States. Mostly we played cards because what I did and how I did it, I worked during flight ops. So we didn't have time to set anything up. We didn't have, God knows we didn't have the space. And so cards were easy. Casino or, big casino, spades, a game called Hell's Bridge. It was a progressive bidding game. Everybody got, well, it was up and down. You started, everybody got one card, then you got 2 cards, then you got 3 cards. And then the first undealt card was trump. And then you had to bid exactly how many tricks you were going to take. And if you bid, say 1, well, anyway, vicious, wicked game. We played that a lot. Played tons of double deck pinochle. Didn't get to play too many games. There just wasn't space. There wasn't time. Anyway, that answers that question. Now, I've cut and pasted a bunch of stuff here, and then I've outlined what I want to talk about tonight. Okay, well, we've got that one already. Okay, I guess we're on this page. Here's an interesting question. How did I feel watching Gygax and TSR from a distance after I left? Well, the conditions of my leaving were such that I had no positive feelings about the separation and what caused it and how it came about or anything for years and years and years afterwards. I felt I'd been betrayed. I felt I'd had several knives placed in my back. And so I wasn't the vindictive sort that's, oh, well, shit, I hope they just fail. Because one thing I knew they weren't gonna. And they continued on. And then, to be honest, after Adventure Gaming folded in 83, 84, whatever that was, I walked away from the gaming industry completely and totally. I never saw the D&D cartoon when it was on TV in its first run. I didn't watch any of those stupid movies that were coming out. I did watch the stupid Tom Hanks movie and thought it was a camp classic, waiting just for time to make it a classic. It was so ludicrous. So I I didn't really react to them one way or another. And then because I got on with my life, I had kids to raise. I was a soccer coach and later a ref and a high school announcer and all this kind of stuff. And I kind of consciously said, screw that. The guys that I'd been playing with when I moved here, several of whom I now play with again, one of whom I don't because he's dead, they consciously shifted away from gaming because they were starting to get married and raise families and whatever. Because I have a few years on most of them. And so I got away from it and didn't care. And then I started to get interested again. And when I will admit to great glee, satisfaction, and feeling of having seen karmic justice delivered when I heard all the crap that went on, how badly the Blues screwed the pooch on the whole thing, which made me delightfully happy. The way they screwed Gary twice made me quite upset and angry because, they didn't do him right. And I felt, well, you're going to treat the guy that, is at least, depending on your point of view, at least half responsible for this whole thing like that. Well, screw you too. So I didn't care. It was unfortunate that there was still a person or two there who I, had regarded as a friend, but I didn't give a damn. The hell with them. I got out of it. I had a real, I went back to the real world. I played cards. I played mahjong. I got my competitive stuff done. Who was the most interesting, weird, unfortunate celebrity you met while working in the game world? Well, I met Orson Scott Card and Marion Zimmer Bradley back in the early 80s at a science fiction convention that I was invited to as the gaming guest with those two people, which Marion Zimmer Bradley was already established. Orson Scott Card was getting there, and I was intimidated. I still have a poster somewhere that needs restoration, but that was interesting and intimidating. More in my own backyard, feeling comfortable vein. The three most interesting people I met and got to interact with while I was with the TSR had to have been Fritz Leiber, Harry Fisher, and Gardner Fox. Two absolutely outstanding sword and sorcery writers. Gardner was also an amazing comic writer and creator. Fritz was an actor and everything else that Fritz did. And they were fascinating people. I got to kind of what I call now a geek squared. And it happens. Somebody that I admire admires me, and we meet for the first time. And we just stand there and kind of geek out on each other. Nothing to see, like a couple of seals, nothing to say. So I was geeking on them, but they were all three of them were just the nicest guys. Unfortunate. I might get in trouble for saying this. It'll probably be Dave Arneson, because he had such a horrible outlook on life. His point of view was to me at least, I don't understand why he felt the way he did. He felt like everybody was picking on him and whatever, and I think that may have contributed to an earlier demise than might have happened. I really think that Dave lost out on a lot of chance to have a lot of joy, and he chose not to. And that's unfortunate because, nasty personality aside, he was a very creative individual. And working with the right people, probably had some more really neat ideas for some good games. Probably not the answer you might expect. Oh, let's see. What's next? Oh, magazines. I have some people here with questions. I've had a few questions about gaming magazines. All right, now this is a little specific, and I'm not going to agree with part of this point of view because one of the philosophies is what makes a good role-playing magazine. I believe that's an oxymoron. I don't believe that's possible. Explain in a second. And how important is it to have a printed, physical, tangible copy? Okay. I think, and I've said many, many times, what makes a good magazine is a blend and a mix, because not that many people that would qualify as gamers only play one game or even one kind of game. Now, admittedly, there are more RPGers that don't do anything but RPG, and there's always been some miniaturists who only miniature. But having said that, what made Dragon Magazine so successful was that we talked about every kind of game. Every kind of game. And it didn't matter if it was our game, your game, gaming, because I felt that, and I still do, the majority of gamers don't just play one game. And I still feel that the majority of gamers will always be open to try something new. I believe that's part of the gaming bug. We find games we love, but we're always looking for that next new challenge. And therefore, I believe that's what made Dragon successful. I know that's what made adventure gaming successful. And that's why I believe that Dragon Online is a piece of crud, because it's gone back to being a house organ. At least what I've seen of it is just, D&D, 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 D&D. Well, that's crap. In my opinion, that's a house organ, and I wouldn't be bothered with one. I wouldn't care if I wrote the game that we're going to write the magazine about. I wouldn't do the magazine. Do we need a physical magazine? God, I wish I could say yes. If we had one, it would fulfill a rare moment in every gamer's. Hopefully, you've had many of them that you open, smell the ink and smell the paper every time you got a new copy. Because I still do the same thing with the history magazines I get in that. I love a physical magazine. I subscribe to several. I wish the hobby still had one, but the hobby won't support one. Everybody thinks a magazine ought to be only about their type of gaming. RPGers want RPG magazines. Well, I got news for you. There's not enough RPG producers to buy the ads necessary to support an RPG magazine unless you want a 24-page magazine every other month. You have to have advertising support. Cannot make your money on. Will not happen. Cover price has to be marked down so that you can put it in stores and they can also make a return on their investment. I believe that the soul of gaming would be restored with a great 64-page, let's all talk just about gaming magazine. We tried that for 6 issues with Gygax magazine. And the second person to earn the appellation, she who must not be named, destroyed it by repeated legal bombardments and assault. I wish we had one. Personally, I don't like reading online. I like reading a book that I hold in my hand. I like reading a magazine I hold in my hand. That said, there's a couple of sites that I go to and one that I subscribe to so that I can read their stuff because it's not available to hold in my hand. Okay, done. I don't know where I'm at on time tonight. I'm probably blowing it. We'll see how it goes. Watching from a distance. Okay, the evolution of monsters. Somebody asked me, what do I think about monsters that have evolved and changed over generations and editions and that? Well, still no drink endorsement. I think you got more monsters than you need now already. I very seldom use most of the exotic crap that's in there, unless it's just absolutely, excuse me. I know that's rude, but my head's been itching for 20 minutes. I will use one out of the book, the Monster Manual, out of the ordinary one, when I have to, when it's absolutely right. But I've always asked people who played in some of my events. I've always found it quite easy to literally chomp parties to bits with the less exotic stuff. God help you with the caimans, which are just a form of a large crocodilian, and the carnivorous apes in my Arredondo adventures, because they're really bad news. And the carnivorous apes are sort of smart and can be directed. And I don't, I invented the beasts that are mistaken for snakes because they were central to the mythos of the story that was the background of the temple. But there's like 5 of them or 6 of them, whatever, and they don't reproduce on their own. And so I made sure that they weren't going to overrun somebody's campaign unless they consciously chose to, change what I wrote about them. I'm big on normal nasties. I love using goblins and orcs and bugbears and stuff like that as harassers, as nasties. I don't. Oh, there's some stupid plump thing that I don't even know why anybody did it. In my opinion, 2/3 of the stuff in the Fiend Folio is just too weird to use. I know that the British culture has a different appendix N than the American culture does. I just probably don't want to read a whole lot of it. Excuse me. It's getting late. So I do know that other companies are running with the Boule right now and fooling around with it and spinning it off into different directions. And that's a company project, and I knew about it when it started and said, yeah, sure, go ahead. I got no problem with that. And that's just a project that they took on. So that's an interesting evolution. Okay, now let's see. There was one other question here that I was going to talk to or address tonight. Oh, all right. This is, and I found out that sometimes I got to go back and edit the thing in the front because I forgot something I said I was going to talk about. So I got to make sure I don't do that anymore. Anyway, the gist of it was from assembling boxes in the basement to what it all became, when it all became it. What was that like? And I wrote a blog when I was blogging my Dragon Grumbles. Titled something about when my head hits the pillow or whatever. It's been quite a ride. Quite a ride. I often use the metaphor: we grabbed a hold of the rocket and let it take us where it would. I don't get, nor do I seek, some of the fame and notoriety and publicity that other people in the business do, and other people that have worked on the product that I helped create. But I'm okay with that. I only bring it up now to contrast to some people that, you know, they never let you forget who they are, or what they did, or what they're, you know, whatever, and wear their product literally on their shirt sleeve or their shirt pocket rather, or whatever. So, like I said in the blog that I wrote, I know what we did. I know because I was there and helped gleefully light the fuse on that rocket, that little Estes rocket kit that became a Saturn. I know that a significant portion of the books that J.K. Rowling were sold to D&D players to read to their kids, read to their grandkids, read themselves, you know, whatever. I know that they wouldn't have made the Hobbit movies and the Lord of the Ring movies. I also know that we can't claim all of that. We were at that point in time where the bootleg copies of the Lord of the Rings intersected with free love and intersected with new ways of looking at things and new changes in religion. And we came out of a very, very interesting boil of ingredients in the stew of life at that time, if you will. And we didn't create it, but we were able to channel it. We were able to get it focused. So yeah, when I watch some of the, you know, that thing that was just on TV with you know, orcs and elves living in LA, etc. I'm blanking again. I'm sorry, that's a problem I get between the late night and late age. Glory, no, I don't know. No, that was a Civil War movie. Anyway, would that have been made if Vin Diesel didn't go on talk shows and talking about D&D when he was a bouncer? Yeah, I know what we did. I know that part of it was luck. I know that a lot of it was damn hard work. I know a little part of it was timing. But when we got the bit between our teeth, we didn't let it go. We ran like hell. And yeah, I'm okay. I don't ever want anybody to think I got a big head about this. But I know when I go to bed at night, I lay my head down on the pillow. I know that from those blue sky talks that Gary and I used to have, I think we changed the world for the better. My hubris, if you will. Somebody asked me about hubris and how we had hubris. We didn't. When I described the hubris that we had, it was oftentimes the blinders that we wore. Um, we didn't, in our hubris, we didn't understand why everybody else couldn't create stuff like we did. Not stopping and going, well, hell, they haven't read all these books that we later then compiled into Appendix N. Well, hell, they don't all have the same backgrounds we do. Maybe some of us did a little theater. There's got to be a willing suspension of disbelief, even to be a board gamer. The willing suspension of disbelief is much bigger in a role player, much bigger. But we all shared those things. We had to have to even be there together doing the same thing. Let's see. I think that about wraps up everything I had on my list here. Make sure I didn't miss any notes. I think I got it all. And all right, I'm from going from the basement to influencing people on multiple levels. Yeah, we didn't we? Damn, it was cool. And I'm real proud of it, and I think we've made the world a better place for it. Now I'm going to give you a quick rundown my con schedule. I'm going to Total Con next month in February, at the end of February, to Massachusetts, where smoking pot is legal. Damn, I wish I went to a con in Colorado. If they send me a ticket, I'll go. I'm going to Gary Con in March in Wisconsin. And then in June, I'll be in Texas at Dallas at the North Texas RPG Con. I believe it's the 11th one this year. I've been to them all, but I'm proud to say. And in November, I'm going to Gamehole Con up in Madison, Wisconsin in the early part of the month. And in the meantime, hope to, my wife and I are planning a little, maybe a week or so out in the Carolinas in the low country, little beach time, little surf fishing time, a little kite flying. I'm always open to cons. Used to go to other cons, that some of which no longer exist because they don't run very well. But and when they ask, I say, well, send me a ticket, or promise you'll pay me for gas if it's close enough to drive, and give me a nice clean place to stay, and I'll come play games with you. That's kind of the way I look at it now. I'm retired. I get to go play games meet new friends, and play games with strangers. Yeah, that's what I do. And if you're lucky, you get to play games frequently too. And this is getting kind of corny, so I better shut up and say goodbye. Click.